Hey guys, welcome to the Fergie Time podcast. I'm your host, Aiden Ferguson, and this week we have a special guest on. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, it's DKM from YouTube. What's happening?
And today we're going to be talking about the Kristaps Porzingis trade, Anthony Davis and the Pelican situation, and then finally the Ball family. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to do a little interview with just like a couple questions right now, so some of my viewers get a little bit background information about you. So just want to introduce yourself and tell them like where you're from and a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Okay, so I'm from Edinburgh. I come from Scotland. I first got into basketball around 5, 6 years ago. I was actually put onto it by my dad and YouTube. I've been doing YouTube for years. I've tried gaming. I was posting FIFA videos. I was posting 2K videos. And it wasn't until about a year ago, round about the time when I left school, that I began taking it serious and posting every day. That's when I started making the content I make now, involve, you know what I mean, the commentary, you know what I mean, the type of videos I make.
Yeah,
And well, yeah, that's
yeah,
a brief.
cool. So what kind of piqued your interest about basketball?
I was a huge fan of football, and I still am today. Football, obviously, being soccer, where I'm from, and I remember sitting watching with my dad, and we were watching a Lakers game, and it was Kobe Bryant. It was more the star power of the individual players that I found like appealing,
Uh-huh.
and obviously they're just cool and stuff. And I feel like the sports are actually a lot more similar than people realize.
I guess let's just jump into the Porzingis deal. So obviously we had the Mavericks and the Knicks come to a deal with Porzingis. It started apparently after he had requested had I guess showed discontent with the Knicks. So with the deal you had Porzingis, Tim Hardaway, Courtney Lee, and Trey Burke going to the Mavericks for Dennis Smith Jr., DeAndre Jordan, and Wes Matthews to the Knicks. So do you think this was the right deal for the Knicks?
I feel like the deal might have been a bit rushed because all of a sudden you see a tweet from Woj, Porzingis isn't content in New York for whatever reason, and then less than an hour later it seemed like he's been traded. But I feel like this move on the part of the Knicks isn't something we can judge until the off season because if they land a Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler caliber player, then you can't exactly say that it was a failure. But then again, if they end up the
If they end up
12th
with
seed
no
next
one,
season,
it's a complete mess.
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
like
I totally understand what you're saying there. It's interesting too because with Kristaps showing his discontent towards the organization, you're wondering if other stars are now kind of questioning, like, hey, if you couldn't even keep that guy, somebody who you drafted and kind of raised through the ranks and believed in when no one else did, how is like Kevin Durant going to be, hey, I want to come here during the summer? So I think it's pretty interesting in that regard. And
it's
also
no secret the Knicks are a joke of an organization from
from
the
the
top. You know
top,
what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And then, what do you think with the Mavericks getting Kristaps? What do you think that does for them in the future? Because that Kristaps Luka combo could be pretty lethal if you add a third player with them.
Obviously, as a European, I'm a big fan of Doncic.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Porzingis, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the European Kobe and Shaq if all goes well and Kristaps comes back fully healthy.
So do you think where do you think they are next year if Kristaps comes back fully healthy in terms of playoffs in the West? Because it's so competitive.
See, that's the thing. They're a playoff caliber team, but given how stacked the West is, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's only 8 spots available, and there's more than 8 teams in the Western Conference that are good enough to make the playoffs. So I think it comes down to what complementary pieces they can surround those two with. Can they? You've got your two stars, you've got your two building blocks, assuming Porzingis comes back healthy.
Yeah, and that's a
I'd
yeah,
like to think they can make the playoffs.
yeah, I think they could be a lower seed in the West probably, unless they add a player. It's going to be huge though that they get Kristaps to resign because they only have him through 2020. So if they end up losing him to free agency, that would be a big issue for them, considering how important of a deal this was and how like this could kind of revamp their organization. I mean, you could say Kristaps is similar to like the new Dirk in terms of if he's able to reach his max potential because
Yeah, that's what I mean.
he's such a
Mm.
skilled player. And
I
then
feel like
yeah,
Porzingis, if you, as the Mavericks, obviously Mark Cuban, they've had Porzingis for 20 years. If there was a player in the league right now that you would ideally want to replace Nowitzki with, it would be Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Cuban is definitely someone who attracts players in terms of he is pretty player friendly. And I think if they with the combo they have, I think if in 2020 if they make the playoffs next year, maybe a star would be willing to come play with them. I think they're going to have to prove themselves, and Kristaps is going to have to prove his health. So I think it really depends all on next season. And hopefully, as long as Luka stays healthy and continues to improve, we all know future All-Star right there. And, I mean, All-Star is just the base for him if he continues to improve.
Mm-hmm. I also think that, well, I don't know quite what the Mavs contract situations are, but, and obviously with Kristaps having to resign, but that's Luka and Kristaps probably both on rookie deals as well. So you have the cap space to probably bring in another player, at least one star.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see them being quite an attractive destination. Obviously, Texas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For all reasons as well.
Do you have a player that you think would be a good match with those two? Like, do you have anyone off the top of your head right now that you'd say, I think they could work pretty well? Because you have a big man in Porzingis, and then you have a guard and like maybe like a shooter.
Can I take the easy route and say LeBron James?
Yeah, I mean that is definitely one that works with anyone. The one I was thinking, this isn't going to happen obviously because he's going to be a free agent this summer and he's going to sign somewhere else, probably back to Golden State. Someone like a Klay Thompson type, where you have a shooter with Luka who can distribute and then a big man. I feel like a three-man like that would be really good. Or if you had a Jimmy Butler type too, someone like that, you could add in there as a guard or as a small forward or something that can dominate as well. Because the other two are so talented, it's just insane.
Because I feel when you've got two stars, the third player that's obviously going to defer to them, they need to be able to play off the ball, and a big part of playing off the ball in today's league is being able to hit from outside. So I like what you're saying with Klay, but I can't see him going to Dallas.
He's not going to go to Dallas. But Klay type, I don't know who's quite available for 2020 since there's so many people trying to sign this year, but it would be interesting to see how that develops. Then going to the Knicks side of it, which is kind of in shambles right now, we have Dennis Smith Jr., and I like that pickup. He's a good player. He wasn't going to reach his potential with the Mavericks. So what do you think about Dennis Smith Jr., and what do you think about his outlook looking forward?
I feel like this can be a fresh start from, like a lot of people. Braun said it himself that he probably should have been a Knick all along with the...
Yeah, that was a mess.
Frank Ntilikina. I'm not going to say too much about him, but Dennis Smith, he's got potential to be a star in this league. He's one of the more explosive young players. And I think in a new situation with the Knicks this year, I actually made a video the other day talking about it.
Yeah, about the relationship with him and possibly Ntilikina. And the Knicks are going to be definitely happy to have him now because they kind of blew it last time.
Yeah. It's a shame that it had to come at the expense of Porzingis, though.
Yeah, it is. I think the one interesting about getting rid of Porzingis, though, is you open up a lot of cap space, too, so they can bring in, like you said, two major players. It's interesting, though, because obviously the Zion race is a big thing now. So who can get Zion? Do they play DeAndre Jordan and Dennis Smith Jr., or do you think they play limited minutes so they can tank? Like, that's an interesting thing that people are talking about, too.
I don't feel like with Dennis Smith, Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson, these guys are already young players. I don't think they'd win many games as is anyway.
Okay.
So, I mean, you don't want to shut them down, obviously, but I don't know. If I'm the Knicks, I'm trying to get Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, or one of the Duke guys.
So going off kind of on a tangent about the Duke team, is there anyone in the draft that you would take number one overall? Is there like disputed Zion or RJ? Or are you kind of stuck in between them?
I'd go with Zion because I feel in the long run, if Zion, I think teams will regret passing on Zion more than they would regret passing up on RJ Barrett, for instance. If you were to take RJ Barrett number one overall and Zion becomes this transcendent talent so many people believe him to be, then I think you're sitting kicking yourself. It's one of those decisions you talk about 20 years from now. But RJ Barrett, it's like, if you were to pass on RJ Barrett, I don't think it'd be as
big of a
I
deal. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, going into this year, everyone was like, "Oh, Zion's maybe the more fun player to watch, but RJ is the better all-around talent." But if you actually looking into the stats now, they're averaging a similar points per game. But what Zion brings is he is so dominant in the paint. It's interesting to see if he can keep that up at the NBA level, though, because of his size in college. As a 6'8" player in college, he's one of the bigger guys. But he also does weigh a lot, so I don't know if he can bring that to the NBA, because if he's operating in the paint in the NBA around other big men, that could start to be a little bit of an issue. But he's so strong that I think it'll be all right. The thing about RJ, though, which is interesting, is that his game's a little more refined. It's not as rough around the edges, but I don't think his potential is nearly like I could see RJ being an all-star, but I don't know about like being a 5, 6, 7, 8-time all-star. I see him making a couple all-star games, being a solid player for your organization, but not being the guy that you can build around for the generation or for like years.
Yeah, exactly. Zion, I feel like Zion, I agree with you there. I think Zion's like ceiling is through the roof. He could go down as one of the greatest players of his generation. You see a prospect like RJ Barrett, in my opinion, every couple of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a small forward. I mean, they come and go. They're a dime a dozen, I think.
Yeah, RJ, although I'd say he's going to be better than him, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Andrew Wiggins, in that I think he's a very talented player and refined game, but he doesn't have, I don't know, the it factor where I don't think he can carry a team. Like if you took Zion off this Duke team, I feel like that would be more valuable. He's more valuable to the Duke team than RJ is. Do you watch any college basketball just in general, or not really?
I try to keep up to date with it. I'd sit down and watch full college basketball games.
Me neither.
I try to. When March Madness comes along, my interest picks up a little bit. I'll obviously watch the Final Four, and I try to keep up to date with the highlights and stuff as much as possible.
Do you have any other high school basketball players that you think could be big going into the draft, or not really?
What, in the 2019
draft?
Well, just yesterday I made a video about Nico Mannion. I feel he's extremely talented. I'm all in on LaMelo Ball being the best player in that class.
Yeah. And then for the draft class, the 2018 draft class, or this year's draft class, I don't know if you know too much about him. I didn't know about him just because a lot of people know about him because of his father. But Bol out of Oregon, I think he's an interesting prospect. I don't know how much you know about him because he's at Oregon. He's not getting necessarily the attention he would at a Duke or a Kentucky. But he's been putting up numbers. He can shoot from three. He reminds me a lot of Porzingis, where he's a big man. He's like 7'3" or something. Can move very well, like quick. He's agile. Can finish at the rim. And then he can also shoot from behind three-point line. So I think he's a Porzingis type. And if he can remain healthy, I see him being an all-star player. And I think he's kind of someone who'll be drafted somewhere from the 3 to 5 spot that a team like if I was drafting at 3, I would probably pick him because of his potential as well.
I feel he's out with his injury. You know what I mean? He's out for the season. I feel he's a risky prospect, but
did he get injured?
Yeah, he's missing the season. That's obviously going to be a big thing.
Damn.
I still see him going in the lottery based on the talent, but I think he's one of those prospects that can go either way. Just looking at how tall and like slim he is, I just see those legs, and I feel like they could snap at any point.
It's just like Kristaps, like injuries. That it is. You're right. I didn't know he had gotten injured. Now hearing that, I would definitely take what I just said kind of back a little bit. But if you're a team drafting low in the lottery, I think that's an interesting pickup right there. I guess let's move on to the Anthony Davis and the Lakers. So recently reported it was Lakers offered the Pelicans Lonzo Ball, your guy, Kyle Kuzma, Rajon Rondo, and Beasley with a first-round pick. And I think a lot of people felt like Woj even said it was an underwhelming offer. Everyone was expecting a little more. The Pelicans have made it clear, unless you give us basically everything, we're like going to wait till the summer. So do you have any initial reactions on that?
As much as I'd like to see the young core intact till the end of the season, I understand that when Anthony Davis is available and you have the chance to pair him with LeBron James, you have to capitalize on that. But yeah, I agree the trade offer was a bit underwhelming. I don't see why they'd even bother with that because the Pelicans, it would make sense for them to wait till the summer. So you'd have to give them the house for them to do the trade now. You know what I mean? You'd have to give them an offer they don't think they could get in the summer, I feel, for them to pull the trigger. And I mean, Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma, Michael Beasley and Rajon Rondo, those are two expiring contracts right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Hart's going to have to be included. Hart, Ingram.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd also want Ball and Rondo, like, and they already have a point guard that they kind of like already. Like, it doesn't make any sense for them in terms of that. And also, it was reported afterwards that the Pelicans apparently countered that with saying, we need at least 2 first-round picks if you even really want to talk at all. So it's probably going to take Ball, Kuzma, Ingram, potentially Hart or Zubac, and then 2 first-round picks to get this deal done. And I'm surprised Magic is kind of reluctant in doing so. Everyone would give him such major props if they were able to get Anthony Davis. Obviously, like, the talent they have is good, but Anthony Davis is a next-level player in the league, so...
It's a different kettle of fish. You quite possibly could have, I mean, depending on where you rank players, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are 2 of arguably the best players in the league.
Yeah, they're definitely both top 5 in my opinion, so...
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, like, looking at all these guys, I think, to be honest, I actually have a fairly high, like regard for Lonzo. I think he's a future All-Star. I think Kuzma is also a future All-Star. And Ingram, maybe he'll make the All-Star game once or twice. But, like, those are all quality players. So I don't know, it's tough for the Lakers, but I think Magic just needs to do it because LeBron's time is up. And, like, it's almost up. And in order for him to really win another championship, he's going to have to get someone for next season. And I don't think Ball, Kuzma, and Ingram will be developed enough by then to be ready to go for next season.
Yeah, exactly. If LeBron was 2 or 3 years younger, possibly you'd wait it out, see what can come of those players, and take the chance that you get someone else in free agency. But the thing is with Anthony Davis as well, he's 25 years old, so when LeBron does eventually decline, you've got a player to lead your franchise for the next decade or so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And LeBron could pass the keys to Anthony Davis. I feel you have to get Anthony Davis if you can, but I think short term for the Lakers, they'd be better off this season keeping the team intact because if you were to give up Rondo and Lonzo, who's your point guard? You know what I mean? And you've lost a lot of depth.
The interesting thing, though, is LeBron could, I mean, this is an argument I always see, is LeBron could run the point. Like, it's interesting with his pairing with Lonzo, because we saw as soon as LeBron went down, Lonzo started to flourish a little bit. Like, we got to see what Lonzo Ball really is this year. Before his limits were his minutes were limited. He wasn't able to, but when LeBron went down, we saw Lonzo is a guy who can average 16 points a game, 8 assists, and like 5 rebounds, like right now. Like he's already that caliber. So I think that's interesting. And it was interesting, a report on ESPN was saying that Lonzo Ball is actually the Pelicans' favorite player, which initially people didn't think would happen. So I think Lonzo, although he's hurt again, which is bad, his stock in general has gone up since LeBron got hurt.
I feel Lonzo, obviously, you want him to remain a Laker because of all the hype and all coming in, and it'd be disappointing to see it be cut short so quick. I'm surprised the Pelicans have him as their number 1 guy. That's surprising. I would have thought Kuzma would have been the most appealing asset.
Yeah.
But I understand the rebuilding, or they plan to rebuild.
Mm-hmm. It's tough, yeah.
It's a sore one, because Anthony Davis is actually one of my other favourite players, like before. So these are 2 of my favourite players involved in the deal, and I'd love to see them both on the same team for the Lakers. That'd be amazing. But
All right, so do you think this deal will happen before the trade deadline? Do you think that's likely or no?
Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. If I was to put my house on it, I'd say no because if I'm the Pelicans, I'm waiting to hear what the Celtics have to offer.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, though, because it all really, if they wait, it's all going to depend on Kyrie's deal. Because if Kyrie doesn't re-sign with Boston, Boston ends up shipping all their assets out. It could be a team with, you could end up having a team with like Gordon Hayward, Anthony Davis, and Marcus Smart,
Yeah,
which would be shocking. It would be terrible. So I would have to say it really depends on the Kyrie deal, and I don't know if I think since Kyrie has come out and said like, "Hey, I'm gonna do what's best for me," all this stuff, and not committed long term, it's gonna be hard for the Celtics to make a move because if Kyrie doesn't return next year, if you're the Celtics, I think you keep your young core and then trying to attract a marquee free agent on your own.
Kyrie, you don't know what that guy's gonna do.
Yeah.
He's
I mean, he could be a Laker next year.
nothing would surprise me with that guy. Like, because I remember when he requested a trade from the Cavs a year ago or whenever it was just like that. You know what I mean? It was never a conversation that Kyrie Irving might decide to leave, and all of a sudden he wants out.
It's really weird, that whole situation with him, because before the season, I don't understand why you would come out and say explicitly, "Hey, like I wanna re-sign with Boston. This is where I want to be with my future." And then, if you're not 100% sure, then why would you ever come out and say that? It's kind of questionable, and I think it's not only it's just bad in general because it for other organizations who are looking to sign you in the future, it shows, hey, he's not really that trustworthy, and we can't rely on him necessarily to be the cornerstone because you really don't know if how his mood is going to swing regarding your own organization.
I know. I also don't quite like with the Instagram and stuff. LeBron, like the Celtics and the Lakers are meant to be like the rivalry in the
Yeah,
NBA, the old firm, the El Clasico,
yeah,
the man,
exactly.
you know what I mean? And it's like singing to each other and stuff. It's just
Yeah, I don't
Kyrie would
know.
hesitate to make the move from Boston to the Lakers, which
Yeah.
I'm sure would sit well with Celtics fans. I
Yeah,
thought.
imagine that happening with Rangers and Celtic. The players even just like being that friendly with each other. That'd be absolutely hilarious. People would go ballistic.
I know, like it's just different, isn't it?
It is very different. Um, I mean, just in the dynamic between soccer or football, as you guys would say, but the dynamic between that and NBA is just completely different in terms of like star-driven league. Soccer is way more of a team sport in that regard, and then also with the fans, the NBA is I think starting to grow like a lot right now, whereas soccer has been established for so long, especially in the UK, that the supporters are completely behind the team, whereas in the NBA right now, you don't have as many diehard supporters. Like you don't have people who like have been supporting a team since they were really young. I think a lot of NBA fans right now are starting to really step in now and say, hey, like this is really fun. This is a great game. I don't know. It's just different. Anyways, getting back to the Pelicans, um, do you think so? Would you rather have with the Pelicans getting offers? Would you rather have like a Tatum Brown? You personally, would you rather have a Tatum Brown, some first round picks, Rozier offer, or do you think? Because I feel like those are pretty similar. Like Tatum is better than Tatum. If we can compare them, Tatum is better than Kuzma, right? That's clear. And then you have Rozier and then Lonzo. Lonzo's better than Rozier. And then you have Jaylen Brown and Brandon Ingram. And I would give the nod to Jaylen Brown, but I think Brandon Ingram has a greater upside. Also, I would say that in terms of picks, the Celtics can offer more. So it really depends on. I think if the Lakers want to get a deal done, they're gonna have to go all out right now.
Yeah, I
And then
feel
it depends
it
on what Kyrie does. Go ahead.
I feel it'd be in when Anthony Davis is available as much as you'd want to focus on this season, because I'd really like to see this Lakers as currently assembled in the playoffs, because I'm one of those people that believe outside of Golden State with LeBron, you know what I mean? They proved it on Christmas Day. I think they could hold their own with anyone in the Western Conference, but to what you said about what was the question again, sorry?
So it was about would you rather have the Celtics assets or the Lakers assets?
Well, if you believe Tatum has the highest ceiling out of all the players, then and Boston obviously has more picks to offer, I'd probably lean more towards the Celtics offer. But it's a tough one because it depends.
Yeah, I personally feel like Tatum's also another guy who's going to be perennial All-Star, but I don't think I think he's a little overrated right now.
I agree.
Like he hasn't proven it so far this year. In terms of playing with Kyrie and being able to play with another great player and being able to produce. He was amazing in the playoffs, but he was also getting all the shots, all that stuff. As a number 2, how would he do? It's just you don't really know yet. Let's move on to the reports of Luke Walton and the veteran players on the Lakers getting into argument. Apparently, it turned into almost like a fist fight in the locker room after he called out the veteran players for lack of effort against Golden State. Do you have any initial thoughts on that?
I know these things happen in NBA locker rooms all the time. The details are obviously limited. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I've not seen any footage, so there's only so much I can say. But when you put this team together with all the characters that the Lakers have, the meme team they called them, something like this was going to happen at some point, and I can understand there's in the Lakers locker room right now. It's like a countdown till the trade deadline because all these players, your Kuzmas, your Balls, everyone still wants to be there.
Yeah.
And if you're Michael Beasley and you're hearing your name in trade talks, you're gonna feel some type of way about that.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. And what's your opinion of Luke overall as a coach? Because a lot of people feel there's mixed feelings towards Luke.
Mm-hmm. I'd say I have mixed feelings towards Luke as well, especially at the start of the year, the rotations. I didn't like the way he utilised Lonzo, taking him out for such long periods at a time. But I do feel, for what he's had to work with, he has done a good job. If it wasn't for the LeBron injury, where he missed up to 17 games, I feel they'd obviously be in a lot better position than they are now. I feel like he's been doomed from the beginning because
he wasn't Magic Sky.
He wasn't, exactly, and I can't.
Yeah, I kind of like Luke. I think he's a good coach, in terms of like some of the plays he runs and that sort of thing, the sets he runs. He does a decent job, and I feel like he's very crafty. Like he's able to work with a large group of players. I think part of the issue though is not actually Luke, but I think the way Magic has set up the team kind of screws him up a little bit because you have Rondo and Lonzo both there, both guys who want to play, both who need to be on the court. That's kind of iffy. Then you don't have any shooters. Like almost most players on the Lakers need to be on the ball, and there's only one basketball, right? So it's hard for them to share because you need LeBron on the ball, you need Lonzo on the ball, you need Rondo on the ball, you need Ingram on the ball, and then you need Lance Stevenson on the ball off the bench. All these guys carry the ball up the court. And the only guy who can really, I'd say, play off ball right now at their best is Kuzma. So I don't like the way the team is really set up. I think he's done a great job while LeBron's been out, and that's something you can say, hey, like that's something you can, I guess, respect him for. But I don't know about him. It's a bad situation. I think it's a bad fit for right now. I would leave him in and see if they can kind of reconstruct the team going into next year.
I feel they obviously need some shooting. That would be the most important part because outside of KCP, Kuzma and Hart, who can consistently game on the line.
Well, that's the thing. It's interesting because Lonzo receives so much criticism about his shooting, and I understand he's a guard in the NBA today, but if you're looking at his stats for this year, his percentage from three is higher it was higher when he was playing than it was for Kuzma and for Brandon Ingram. So it was kind of yeah. So I think when I last checked, this was a little while back, but Lonzo was shooting about 33% from three, which is not great, especially for a guard. But then you had Ingram shooting 30%, Kuzma shooting 31%. So it's not just Lonzo, and LeBron's a decent 3-point shooter, but he's not great. So you need to. I mean, I would have liked to see them trade for like a Kyle Korver earlier in the season, but that obviously didn't happen.
Korver would be ideal, especially off the bench. I still like the idea of a Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I really like that one too, because you have someone who will accept the role as a second superstar. He could be a third too, a third superstar.
Yeah.
And he can shoot. He's just a good, solid basketball player.
Who else would delete? Klay Thompson's the perfect.
Yeah. Too bad he's not gonna leave Golden State. I mean, I don't know. I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm a Golden State, like, I guess Golden State sort of fan. I don't really have a team for sure, but like Golden State is like, they're so fun to watch. Like it's insane.
I feel like the only reason people hate Golden State is because they're that good.
Yeah.
And there was something you said earlier when you were talking about the dynamic between basketball and football, soccer, with the fans. I feel like in soccer there's more of a cultural aspect to it.
Yeah.
Where, like, I see people all over the States, they're from Cleveland. No, they're from Toronto.
But they support
the Cavaliers. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I'd say that's the difference, but that's probably because it's more of a player-driven league. Like, me, myself, I was a Pelicans fan, like, because Anthony Davis was my favorite player.
Yeah.
But then I realized around last year, I was like, when Davis goes, I have no loyalty to this organization. Like, I decided on draft night, on the 2012 draft, okay, who's the best young player? Anthony Davis. Okay, I'm going to support whatever team he plays for.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just enjoy the spectacle.
And I think it's interesting too, like, a lot in the UK is like supporting your local team. Do you have a team you support?
My local team is Hibs.
Hibs, okay.
Very good.
Yeah. I mean, you have two choices in Edinburgh. You have Hibs and Hearts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be
Yeah, man. It's the SPL's actually, I mean, we're probably not going to end up talking about it very much, but just a tangent, I guess, again. The SPL's been pretty good this year in terms of, like, it's a lot closer. Rangers is actually challenging again, so it makes it more interesting just as a fan overall, which is good to see, because when Rangers went down for a while, I mean, Celtics won 7 straight, so it's just like...
I don't, that's... Until proven otherwise, like the Warriors. I mean, people are telling me that Kilmarnock and Rangers... Let's not talk too much about the SPL because we'll lose. But until proven otherwise, it's Celtics League, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the Ball family, right? Okay. So you cover it. Why do you think people are so interested in the Ball family? What about them is appealing?
It's new, it's fun. I feel like they've done wonders for basketball outside of the NBA. They're, you know what I mean? Like, people are paying more attention to high school basketball, college basketball, even the JBA. When I was at the JBA game a few months ago, I think they identify with young people because you see all these kids are wearing LaMelo Ball jerseys for Vitautas. And just everywhere they've gone, they've brought the spectacle with them. There's obviously LeVar Ball.
Yeah, and he's super polarizing. Like, LeVar, he's in ways he's like larger than life in that he brings like such entertainment to basketball. And you see it now even more with like channels like Overtime just posting. Like, you talked about this before, the Julian Newman LaMelo Ball game. Like, they're just posting all this stuff about like LaMelo, all these top athletes, and then they kind of choose their 5-6 players they really want to focus on, and then it's like everything, and you get like in your recommended you get LaMelo Ball like 30-point triple-double, Julian Newman drops, that kind of thing. So it's all over, and they're polarizing figures. So it makes sense why people are so interested.
I feel like LaMelo Ball is quite possibly one of the 10, 15 biggest stars in basketball altogether.
Yeah.
Like, outside of your LeBrons, obviously your KD, Stephs, who
grabs, like, who has the cachet in terms of his name? Like, if you ask the casual fan over the past couple of years, like to name some basketball players and say, hey, don't include some people not from the NBA, I think your number one guy would be, what about LaMelo Ball? Like he has more. His name is basically up there with Zion in terms of coverage.
Oh, definitely.
And Zion is supposed to be the #1 overall pick next year, so that's insane. And then the last thing I wanted to go through was, so can you give me like an NBA comparison and a ceiling for each brother? I have my own right now. And one of them I wasn't sure about because LaMelo, I don't really know a great comparison for him. But let's just start with Lonzo. Who do you have in terms of his comparison now that we've seen him in the NBA for a little while?
I mean, you hear people talk about Jason Kidd. As a direct comparison for Lonzo, I mean, it depends on who you ask. Someone will tell you Michael Carter-Williams. Someone else will tell you Jason Kidd, depending on how they feel about Lonzo as a player. But I quite like the Jason Kidd one.
That's my favorite too.
That's standard. I feel like obviously I didn't watch much of Jason Kidd, so I'm not the best person to ask. But he's a pass-first player. He impacts the game in other ways, other than scoring, and that's something I think Jason Kidd did.
Yeah, I think also what's interesting is coming into the NBA draft, Lonzo's biggest question was, can he be a great defender in the NBA? And he's proven he is a great defender. So I think that's a great comparison with Jason Kidd there. Also, Jason Kidd wasn't a great shooter. He had to change his game a little bit, but he was probably shooting his best season 35% from three. That's definitely achievable for Lonzo. So as long as he improves in terms of attacking the basket and finishing, and then he keeps on working on his defense, improves his three-point shot, I think he can be, and just being more aggressive every game, having that confidence. And that'll come if he gets traded at an organization where it's kind of his organization, where he gets to have players build around him, then I think he can achieve that Jason Kidd stature.
Exactly. If you surround Lonzo with shooters everywhere he's gone, he'll figure it out. I feel his jump shot will come along eventually. I think a lot of it's mental just now, because when you look at his free throw percentages at UCLA and the Lakers, it's completely different. And at the end of the day, you are just shooting a free throw.
Yeah, that's terrible. That really needs to improve
that's
because
inexcusable. I can't defend him.
Yeah. Man, that's worse than Shaq right there.
No, I can't defend him on that.
Yeah. All right. Next we have LiAngelo Ball. So this is a hard comparison to make because, I don't know how you feel, but I feel that LiAngelo Ball he's an NBA level player. I believe he will be in the NBA one day, if the path works out and everything. But I don't think he's going to be a star or even maybe a starter at any point. But I have a comparison for him, and let me know what you think about this. I have Damian Lee of the Warriors. So they're both shooting guards, about 6'5", 6'6". Lee is a good shooter. Like you were talking, I remember you did a video on Damian Lee too. You talked about how he's great from behind the 3-point line, which is what LiAngelo would probably be in the NBA, in my opinion. I think LiAngelo would be a little better of a scorer just because every level he's been to, you can't dispute it. He's a great scorer. Even when he went to Lithuania, everyone's like, oh, he only averaged 12 points. But if you don't realize that European basketball is more of a team brand, you realize he was basically the top scorer in the league. I think he averaged maybe 14 points while he was there.
And he was coming off the bench too.
Yeah, so I think he's definitely NBA level, and I think a Damian Lee comparison is good because I see him on a team averaging somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes a night, coming on to shoot the basketball, put up two or three threes, and then that's about it. Improving defense, though, I would need to see him improve his defense.
Yeah. My worry for LiAngelo is the path he's taken. I believe had he stayed 4 years at UCLA, he would have been a solid college player, possibly even breaking the records for threes or something, and he would have made it to the NBA there. With what he's doing right now, I can't see a path for the NBA, a path for him to get to the NBA without going to the G League. That remains to be seen. But as for an NBA comparison, it won't be as specific as yours, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of bulky scorers who can shoot the ball, and I'm thinking about Carmelo Anthony and Paul Pierce. Obviously, he's a lot smaller than those guys, but Melo is someone who, again, his defense was questionable.
Yeah.
And although his percentages from outside aren't as efficient as other shooters, he can still knock down the 3-point shot
So do you think? So are you saying then that LiAngelo could be like an NBA All-Star then, or?
Nah.
Okay,
I
okay.
just meant
So
in terms
similar to
of,
those players in terms of style, but not nearly, because he's not.
yeah,
The thing is, like, Paul Pierce and Carmelo were some of the most talented scorers in the NBA ever.
yeah, should have clarified.
Yeah, but no, that's fine. So yeah, I think LiAngelo's tough because I agree. Like, if you see, he entered the draft as what it would have been a first year out of college, and he had a potential of being picked late second round. So if he had stayed in college for 4 years, his potential, I think his draft stock would have been relatively high. I could have seen him going maybe late first round, probably is what I would have seen for him, and someone who could have built an NBA career. You're going to be dropping a video about him kind of soon, right?
Actually today.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
about where he is now and what's next for his career.
All right.
So LaMelo now.
Yeah, LaMelo. So we have I couldn't think of one, to be honest. So what I did is I went online and I looked at his draft stock for 2020, which you have reported before too. They have him around 16th right now, and they had him compared to Seth Curry, which I think was a terrible comparison. In that, although Seth Curry's a good shooter, he doesn't really distribute very well. He's not a star, which is LaMelo will be a great player in the NBA in my opinion. And then also I think LaMelo brings more to the table than Seth Curry in that he's taller. They're just different players in my opinion. What do you think about that?
I don't see the comparison with Seth Curry unless LaMelo is meant to be the Seth Curry with a 41-inch vertical. But I don't see the set. I can't think of a comparison for LaMelo because he's tall. He's crafty with the ball. It's hard to say how good of a shooter he is. We know he's got NBA range from all the half-court shots and stuff.
Efficiency is a big deal with him, though, I think.
And Seth Curry is one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league, I believe.
Yeah.
This season. And I don't think LaMelo will ever be that. But he's a showman. I believe he'll be in the NBA a year from now. And something I want to say is if Lonzo goes to the Pelicans and they're a rebuilding team and they have a first-round pick, and
they'll take LaMelo.
They'll take LaMelo, and then they'll get LiAngelo in the bunch as well to keep them too happy, and they'll build around the three ball brothers.
Imagine if LeVar worked out and LeVar's whole plan was right. That would be insane.
New Orleans instead of LA.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, that would be you would get people into the stadium with that, with the three ball brothers.
Sure.
That's insane.
Where would they go? They're filled up.
So where do you see LaMelo being just in terms of his future? Do you think he's a perennial all-star? What do you think about LaMelo in that terms of that?
I think LaMelo has the talent. He's a 6'7" point guard. Depending on how much he can develop from now till the NBA, or obviously when he'll already be in the NBA, I think he can be an all-star, if he lives up to his full potential. I feel like he has the most potential of all three brothers. Yeah,
I think his biggest thing is going to be, there's two things for me. Is one, efficiency, right? With the NBA changing towards a little more towards analytics and that aspect of it, he's going to have to be more efficient, better shot selection. So not always pulling up from 5, 6, 7, 8 feet, 10 feet behind the arc. That's not going to work. But you've seen it at Spire where he's been around better players, showing a little more respect even towards just the game in terms of he plays more defense now. He's starting to add little things like that to his game. Obviously, his defense will need to improve, but if he can become a little better of a defensive player and then improve shot selection, I don't think anything holds him back from being an all-star.
I agree with that.
If you had to choose, would you choose Nico Mannion or LaMelo Ball?
I'd go with LaMelo Ball because everywhere he's gone, he has performed. Even as a 16-year-old in Lithuania, obviously his percentages are going to be low. He's playing against grown men. I feel like LaMelo is the most established point guard of his class. So I'd give LaMelo the nod just now because everything Nico's doing, LaMelo's already done. And LaMelo's has a better CV in my opinion because he's played pro, he's played against every competition there is to play against.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's hard to really say between Lonzo and LaMelo who will be better in the NBA. I think I'd still lean Lonzo just because he's already there. He's kind of a proven he's a proven commodity in terms of comparing him to LaMelo. But I think I agree with you. LaMelo does have the most potential, and I think there is a spot in the NBA for all three of them, as long as Jello can figure out his bit. So
Jello just needs to work his way up from the minors, get himself in the G League.
He really needed to sign with the G League in the summer. But if he can get a contract in the G League, even whenever he can, that's what's best for him. Because once he starts to prove himself in the G League, he'll start to make an NBA roster.
Because he can score. He can score with anyone. He's proven against. I feel like even off the bench at UCLA with last year, he would have chipped in for 10, 15 points a game.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, DKM, for coming on.
No problem. I appreciate it.
And then if you guys want to check out his channel and stuff, it's all going to be in the description. And you got a new video about LiAngelo Ball coming out today?
Yeah, it's coming tonight.
So make sure to go check that out. He's basically I'd say one of the biggest basketball, reporters, commentators on YouTube. So make sure to check his stuff out. It's quality. He does his research, all that. And then if you guys want to come on the podcast, make sure to DM me at the Fergie Time Podcast. And then just comment stuff that you want me to talk about in the future and future interviews you'd like me to have. Thank you guys for watching, and peace. Sorry, I just had to do my...
I'll quickly say one thing. Are you still on?
Yeah.
I want to say doing a podcast is something I've always wanted to do, and me being on this right now, I want to thank you for inviting me on because I've really enjoyed this.
Thanks.
Time's just gone like that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Peace.